Greetings, humans, and welcome to Lead Human. I'm Tim Spengler, along with my co-host, the prolific author and futurist, Mr. Jack Myers.
Hey, Tim.
Together in about 30 minutes or so each week, as part of the ACAST Creator Network, we aim to prove that despite all of this emphasis on data and dashboards and AI, that the real competitive advantage in business today is still about unleashing the human potential, and this is Lead Human. Jack, our guest this week is Lizz Ross. She's an accomplished executive, and we used to work together, so I know firsthand, both on the client side, on the agency side, and the technology side. She's a really interesting person. She's led agencies. She's currently CEO of a company called Shift Paradigm, which is in the data and technology consumer engagement strategy space. She was CEO of an agency with a successful exit. She was CMO of a health group that had a huge IPO, $1 billion IPO. I know Liz to be relatable, to be real, to be smart, but to care. And so I'm looking forward to our chat about her. Another interesting thing about Liz, she is, as a side hustle, working with moms in an age of how do you bring up kids with AI in their brain from the beginning? Yeah. And I know you're writing about this.
Well, that's core to the things I'm writing about.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she had a 200-person mom group lecture on this topic in Minneapolis, where she lives, Minnesota, where she lives, and is going to be doing it here in Brooklyn as well. So it's a really interesting passion project for her about something, we like to bring up, and you're always good at bringing up humanity, bringing this to humanity.
Lead human,
and we are lead human.
Yeah.
And so, a perfect candidate for that. So that's going to be Liz.
In reading a little about Liz, and thank you for introducing us, I've really, because of the connection that you're describing to a lot of the work I'm doing around what I call Gen Nexus, the first generation to be growing up with AI embedded as a part of their lives. She puts down one of her favorite quotes as an Alvin Toffler, who wrote Future Shock, quote that said that the illiterate in the 21st century will not be based on whether you can read or write. It'll be based on your ability to unlearn, learn, and relearn, or learn, unlearn, relearn. And that's something that I've actually been writing about as well, that the future is about unlearning, because we have to really unlearn a lot of our past in order to plan for the future.
Why do we have to unlearn the past?
It's not that we have to unlearn the past, but a lot of our habits, a lot of our patterns, a lot of the things like, for example, leadership has been based on power and authority and intelligence and being the smartest person in the room. You don't have that anymore. You're not the smartest person in a room where AI is leading. But that's just one of many examples where the patterns that have been built up in the industrial age and even in the information age are not all that relevant for leadership and growth in the AI age. And it leads me to something that I've been eager to talk with you about, Tim, and those are relationships. And I've been thinking a lot about relationships, writing a lot about, we're all relationship in the human world, in the lead human context is that relationships and the role of AI. But I was thinking about three types of relationships that we have. We have our relationship with each other, which I've been really pleased by our relationship. We went into this really not knowing we like each other, we respect each other,
but never really worked together.
Or had this kind of collaboration, and I think it's been really working. And the second is our relationship with ACAST, our distributor, and of course the interest they have in, can we scale this podcast? Can we grow large enough so that there's a revenue model, which is pretty much around advertising, which
audiences leads to advertising. Yep.
And then there's the third relationship, which is with our audiences who are joining us, and you and I get feedback, and we hear and we know we have an audience where, but scaling it is really difficult. And there's a conflict, I think, Tim, between scaling it to generate size and advertising revenues, which you need to really get to a number that YouTube starts to recognize, Spotify, the Apple, they're paying attention to and feeding advertising into. But then there's also the relationship of what we'll call fans, people who are coming back week after week, who have gotten to know us and like what we're doing and give us feedback. And the two aren't necessarily complementary, because one, you're going, how do we reach a large audience? And the other is, how do we reach a loyal audience? Right. And how do we generate sponsors and support that way? And so I'm concerned and conflicted really in how we navigate. I think the one between you and me has turned out to be the easiest. I think the relationship with ACAST has been tremendous.
Yep,
they're a great partner.
Yep.
I was in their Stockholm headquarters. I met with their key leaders there. We produced a few that we'll be seeing in the future from London that I'm excited to share with our audience. But that third one of how do we bridge that conflict between scaling our audience but having a loyal return audience and have content that they're familiar with, that they expect to see from us. So I don't know there's an answer to that. I'm just putting it out there on the table as something that maybe our audience can give us feedback on. Maybe we can get some feedback from the audience on what is it that you like, that you'd like to see more of, the kinds of guests that are most interesting, and what you think of the banter we like to do like this in advance of the show.
Absolutely. We got to make it damn interesting and entertaining. I know that. We got to keep working at that. But what else around that?
Well, I think relationships in general, when is a whole topic we could have a whole show on, just talking about how do you build relationships with AI how do you build a relationship with your AI? I think, how do you build a relationship with Claude or with ChatGPT? How does it get to know you? If you're in the advertising business, it's like building a model for search engines so that they recognize you. How do you build a model so that the AI knows who you are if you're an advertiser or a brand or a marketer or an individual? If you put into ChatGPT or Claude, tell me about Tim Spengler, you want it to know what you want it to share. But I also think it's bridging a lot of challenges. I'm hearing more and more about therapists who are training and teaching and educating their patients on how to use AI to help prepare for communication or question a challenge if there's a conflict, to how to resolve it or how to communicate during the conflict. So I think AI is turning a lot upside down. It takes you back to, what's learning and unlearning. I think there's a lot of things in relationships that tie back to that. So I like the idea of really exploring relationships and exploring relationships with our audience.
Very good. It sounds like we'd like some feedback. Hopefully we'll get that. But let's get to Liz now, and we'll continue this conversation.
Talk to her about relationships.
And we'll ask Liz too. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Liz, come on. Liz, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's good to reconnect.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
This is going to be fun. First question. Tell us about your leadership style.
So, great question. I think it's really twofold. I think the best leaders are the ones who can balance accountability and authenticity. And it's a little bit sort of overdone. People sort of use it as a throwaway, but I think that
authenticity comes up a lot, and we agree. We totally agree.
And I think that, I just saw something recently that really stuck with me, that people talk about, bring your whole self to work. I actually think you should just bring your best self to work. And maybe that's the most authentic. That you don't need everything. Everybody doesn't need every version of you. But I think authenticity for people who are in leadership,
right? Because
it comes down to, do people trust you?
Right. Important word. I like that. Okay. Your origin story is very fun. So why don't you tell it?
Okay.
And then I have a question about it.
Excellent. So do you want me to start like life origin, or do you want me to tell it?
Age 11.
Age 11. Love it.
That's the story.
Love it. So when I was 11, my godmother lived in Chicago. I'm actually named after her, my middle name, my favorite person in the world. I went to visit her, and she had to work. And so she left me in the care of a woman who worked at one of the big ad agencies for the day.
Do you remember which one it was?
I think it was BBDO, I think. And so she took me to the office. We went to her apartment for dinner, and it was transformative because I was a kid. I'm the daughter of an artist and a computer programmer. So left brain, right brain. To me, the sort of marrying of technology, we were doing early programming in my house, but art and creativity and humans was perfectly encapsulated in advertising. So I came home, I put a note on my mirror in my bedroom in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I told my dad, I will live in Chicago and I will work in advertising.
At 11.
At 11. At 11, and I never strayed.
That's
from
what
the
you
path.
did.
And you said, because I read this, and live on Lakeshore Drive, which you did also, which is
I did.
Okay, so here, right, so that's I mean, there's very few of these kind of stories where someone at 11 has the light bulb go off. So you probably have an advertising degree major in college. Okay, fine, that's
Yep.
fine. That's at 18. So at 11, between 11 and 18, what do you do with that light bulb that went off? And do you tell people about it? Did you watch advertising more closely in magazines? And did you do anything between this period of time?
Well, so I loved to create. So I would draw. I thought I was going to be a creative. And so I would draw, I would design things, I would look at ads. We were really early with computers. As I mentioned, my dad's a computer programmer. So we had a computer at our house. So I was looking at sort of creating printed documents. I loved doing layouts. I loved type. I still love type, actually.
So you were kind of creating in a way.
Yep.
Did you tell your friends about this? And they said,
Yep.
"What do you?" And did you get? Well, they're young. How much endorsement are they really going to give you? But
Right.
did they think you were weird?
No, I think it was such an anomaly, and I was so driven. So I've always worked, and I always looked for sort of creative outlets. And so I think they just sort of thought, okay, she's driven.
So
Yeah.
So I want to follow up on the 11-year-old story, but first I want to go back to the authenticity, and it is a word that most of our guests use in
Yep.
some context. Tim and I launched Lead Human with the common thread of empathy, and empathy is also a word that over the last year has become very used. Empathy is not something that comes naturally to many people. It's something that can be taught, but it's not necessarily easy to learn if it's not natural to you. So you talk about bringing your best self forward. What if your best self that you're able to bring forward is just not empathetic? How do you navigate that as a leader?
Honestly, that's such a good and real question, because it's sometimes hard to be empathetic, because there's a line of taking on other people's pain or other people's stories, right? There's a reason why being an empath is a difficult road. And especially in leadership roles, right? You're balancing hard decisions, you're balancing external sources, financial realities. But I think that it can be rooted in curiosity. So if you think about being an empath, it doesn't mean you have to onboard everybody else's
Pain
anxiety, right? Or everyone else's sort of energy. But are you curious? Are you curious about other people? Are you curious about what makes them tick? Are you curious about what makes yourself tick, right? I think those are the sort of ways that you can do that.
We talk about radical curiosity as something that, is if you embed the idea of being overly curious, it brings you home. I like also the context of an empath. You don't necessarily need to be an empath to be empathetic and to learn the qualities of listening and creating a sense of belonging. Coming back to the 11-year-old girl who knew who she wanted to be in that light bulb, you have 12-year-old twins, a 10-year-old, so that balances out to maybe 11 and a half.
Yep.
So at that age, you had that sense of wonder when you were at BBDO. What are your kids, what's the wonder that they have today, and how do you encourage that same wonder in them and in others that who you work with and lead?
I think about this all the time. And so my son is 12, and he loves Halloween.
Loves
Halloween.
Halloween.
So we have and are the proud owners of 12 animatronics. Those giant things that move. We have a 12-foot
Oh, I
skeleton.
want a picture of that. Oh, my God.
Wow.
And so last year, our house got 600 trick-or-treaters. 600.
Wow.
So now, most of our neighbors think that we're crazy,
Yeah, yeah.
but he's a builder. And so we buy these things used. And so he puts them together. And he's starting to create and modify them so that they do other things or they move differently or they have different. And so I think we just bought a 3D printer so he can replace parts in them because
Early robotics. Really.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And so he's a creator and a builder. So we do everything we can to foster that drive to make things. My twins are very different. They're my 10-year-old twins. And my one daughter, Audrey, has already decided she's going to be a scientist and she plans on curing cancer. She is.
So they're following in your footsteps.
That's right, very much. And my daughter, Reagan, is definitely more sort of exploring. But I think for all of them, what I tell them is focus on what is being useful. Being useful. What are you doing to make other people's lives better? And you build careers around usefulness, not passion, not happiness, but being useful.
It's not just leaders, it's parents who are leaders, it's teachers, it's coaches, it's mentors. Being useful. That's interesting. That's good advice.
Speaking of parents, tell us about this initiative that you're doing with kids and schools and AI.
Well, thank you. This is easily where I think the rest of my life will be largely grounded. And the premise is to help parents think through the use of technology and what are the skills that kids are going to be able to lean in on, develop in an age where AI will beat them every single day if there is a right answer or a wrong answer. And I just had this conversation with my 12-year-old who was in the car and he said, Mom, AI is going to take over the world. We're going to be run by robots. And I said, let me just frame it to you like this. AI has answers, right? You can ask it any question in the world and it will give you an answer. I said, what humans do is ask questions. And you need to think of better, ill-formed questions. And the example I gave him was Artemis is circling the moon, right? And we're all talking about sort of space travel and the space base. And so many people are saying, well, great, how do we get food to the moon? And I said, Wyatt, the question that we should be asking is, why do we need food? And it just was a light bulb for him.
You've brought up a couple things that I know you've also written about that I've been writing about and commenting on. One is that questions, the new genius is the ability to ask the best questions. And not knowing is the new knowing. And just share a little about some of the work you've done on knowing and not knowing.
Yep. So I love this. I think that the idea of being able to formulate an argument or leaning into having a mirror, right? And being able to push against something to pressure test is absolutely a gift. And it's a real important gift for leaders because I say this also, leadership is lonely. It's a lonely experience to sit at the top of a company, whether you're inside of a giant company and you have a division or you're in a small company, because you know more than everybody else. It's very appealing to be able to start to push against something that answers you and answers you without fear of they go tell somebody else or. So I think that really that idea of pushing against not knowing, being able to ask a potentially stupid question, right? So imagine being early in your career and not knowing what EBITDA is.
Sure.
Tell me, how do I think about this? How is this calculated? What do I, and in the old days, right, you'd have to ask somebody and be vulnerable. And now the answers right there.
So to our listeners and viewers who are questioning what is EBITDA, go to ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, and ask it.
Absolutely.
I love your piece that you wrote in Forbes about AI is a kind of a be careful. AI is really more of a sycophant.
Yep.
It will possibly be wrong in answers and will validate what you think. It's a great article. I encourage anyone to read it. Question: in your view, does AI have integrity?
See, there's a very good ill-formed question. Yes and no. Yes and no. The superpower for humans going forward, for every human, is discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Is it real? And so integrity is such a human concept. Are we who we say we are? Are we delivering against our values? Are we showing up the way we want? So I don't think AI can have integrity, right? It's Rashad's applied statistic. It's applied statistics is what AI is, and it's wrapped into sort of simulation of emotion or intelligence but I think that the risk, and I stated this really clearly in that article, is that we fall in love with the version of us that it shows us.
Right.
And that we jump ahead to thinking that we know more than we do. And that we believe that all of our ideas are good ideas. We believe that we've tapped something. And without that pressure test, it's
Let's
risky.
go down that path if we can
Sure.
a bit. You mentioned to me earlier that you've spent 7 days at Singularity University. I recommend Peter H. Diamandis' Substack to everyone to have that context of where we're headed. And he writes, and you write, and I write about ethics, integrity, judgment, discernment being the human qualities that are why we think about leading human. But yet at Singularity, they're also talking about 5 years from now, or maybe less, that AI will have AGI and OpenClaw will have those capabilities. So what are we doing right now to make sure that integrity, ethics, judgment are built into whatever is being built out?
Well, I think that is probably the scariest sort of part of it. And if you look at, the AIs are coding the next AIs, right? Or the experiments where the AIs change language when they're talking to avoid, I think that our job is this is why the kids thing is so important, is to teach our kids how to judge. And to teach our kids how, because at Singularity, and it was the best 7 days I've ever spent in a conference it was mind-bendingly good. The reality is we are no longer in control. And let me give you an example of, we talked about quantum computing. So this person this man who's running, I think he's won the Nobel Prize, but physics, and he's talking about how quantum computing works with qubits. And he's running through this model. And I wrote in my notebook, I am a stupid person because he said the qubits start doing this and we don't know why. And I thought, if this guy who's
In the middle
a
of it.
million degrees in physics doesn't know why, the reality is we're not going to know why many of these things happen. And so I think our job is to double down on our humanity, teach our kids to think. By the way, the one main thing I took away from Singularity was turn off Google Maps. Using turn-by-turn directions is damaging our hippocampus and is actually changing our neural pathways. And so if you cannot spatially navigate, it's ancient.
Wow.
So how do I get
Wow.
there if I'm not using that?
Check your phone when you first start out and make sure there's no construction or route changes, and then put it away. Do not connect it to your car. let yourself get lost. Tell your kids, are we going north or south? Where's the sun? Where's the moon? These are ancient, because the inability to navigate actually changes how we are in professional settings, in personal settings, and the research is really clear.
That sounds like an article you're going to write next.
It's definitely on the list.
I want to come back to leadership inside of an organization. You've led some organizations. You and I worked together when we both had, divisional leadership roles. I love in the Forbes article you said that as you move up, and this is not just if like we're the CEOs under a global CEO, which we both were, but this could be, I think, moving up in a division or anything else. As you move up, you said agreement becomes more common and dissent becomes more expensive. So I love that.
Yes.
It's unfortunately true, and you and I looked each other in the eye a number of times when,
yes.
Oh my God, in rooms. So what is the advice to somebody who's moving up to navigate that?
So having opinions and a point of view is the most valuable thing you bring to work, whether you are 22, whether you are 30, and it's going to make you difficult. And so I say this often. So I've been fired, and I say to people, if you've never been fired, you can't say you've had a career because you never actually pushed something or someone. And so being a person who's willing to push, willing to call out what's happening that makes no sense is, again, the most valuable thing you can bring to your work. So if you're operating within a system, and those big companies, those are systems, and you're just going along, I think the days of that are over.
Why? Because you don't mean to be blunt. You don't mean to be a blunt. You don't mean to be a blunt force. So there's definitely has to be subtleties in this. But what do you mean the days are over?
So I think there was a great, and I'll share it out. There's a link around the death of fake work. And so fake work is sort of being inside of these big companies and running spreadsheets and sort of moving things from here to there, sort of light analysis. Though that work is ending because AI is going to do all of that. What actually is going to be much more important is an opinion.
In the AI era, opinions will matter more.
That's right.
I wonder if senior leaders will. So you're saying ultimately, whether consciously or subconsciously, senior leaders are actually going to be looking for opinions more.
100%.
Okay, I've heard that here first. Okay.
Excellent.
That's a path that we could probably go down for another half-hour conversation. You're on the board of Hart Hanks?
I am. Yep.
A legacy newspaper-based company.
Yep.
What advice do you give the company today? But more importantly, what advice do you give leaders and employees within the company and in any legacy company that may not have the ability to accelerate their investment in AI?
Yep. So I have loved the Hart Hanks journey and the board journey because it's a very different one, as you know well, from being an operator. But really the Hart Hanks story is one where identifying their point of differentiation. So we have a customer care business, we have a fulfillment business, and at every step, those businesses have human touch. And so one of the things we've talked about is relentlessly human. When you are having a problem with your subscription or you've got a product that you don't like, do you want to talk to a robot? Do you want to talk to a computer? You don't. You want to talk to a person. And so really doubling down for Hart Hanks on where are they human? And I think that even for the people inside of the business, it's going to be human plus technology, not technology only. And so for the people of Hart Hanks, we've, done a lot of work around relentlessly human.
So along the journey, figure out when people need the human in the company, the customer.
That's
right. Customer journey, right.
Well, and the other thing, and Greg Hahn, who we all know of Mischief, had my favorite quote about AI and the world in general. What he said was, as the world gets more perfect, we are going to look for humanity in the mistakes. And I think that is
Humanity in the mistakes.
So mistakes are evidence of humans, because AI doesn't really make mistakes. And you see it in LinkedIn.
Well, that's not true.
Well, they don't make mistakes in like turns of phrase, or they don't, like if you think about typos, AI doesn't issue anything with typos. So much of the sort of world it gets perfect. And I think that the sort of, where are the things that make it human?
So in a world that's headed toward perfection, imperfection
yes,
is what we aspire to?
I think that's what we look for. We're going to be trying to find evidence of other humans. So back to,
This
when
is a takeaway from Singularity.
It is.
It really
it
is.
is.
Just embedded in it.
It is.
Really cool. All right, I think this is going to be our last question. Go back, talk about the moms and the education, the AI, and what you're doing, because I think people would be interested and maybe want to be able to learn from that or figure out how they can sign up for what I'm calling a little bit of a movement that you're creating.
I love that. So what I'm trying to do is to help moms who are generally really tied into their kids' educational journeys really think through, how are they teaching their kids to think? So not just perform, not just, sort of do well on tests, but really think. And so it comes down to clarity around write the first draft.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you don't teach your kids that, well, AI is going to do the hard part, the annoying data assessment, and I'm just going to do the creative part. Creativity requires the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
You got to write the first draft. And so I've broken it out into age-based recommendations. So from 6 to 10, what you're doing is sort of helping your kids memorize things, like be able to hold information, start to form opinions. From 11 to 15, they're forming their core beliefs. How do they see the world? What do they double down on? When they're 16 to 20 or 22, make them articulate what they believe and why. And so I go through all of that.
So this is a curriculum for moms, you were saying, right?
Recommendations for how to manage, focus, and guide your kids from 5 to 20.
And this is a seminar you did?
I've given a speech in my town,
in Minneapolis.
Edina to be specific,
Nice.
for those that hate the cake eaters, and
play golf.
And play golf, yeah. Right. And then I'm teeing up to do it. I'm getting ready to do one here in Brooklyn, here in New York. Really just grounding moms in how to think about this, because what I see is a bifurcation of, I'm just going to use no technology. I'm going to lock down devices.
Right. What's this called? Is this a course someone could look online and learn more about?
It isn't yet, but it's really around how to build your kids to be AI proof.
But you will productize this, and then it
Absolutely.
will scale.
And I've coined the term, or I'm using the term that I may not have originated, but I like, called Generation Nexus, or Gen Nexus, a generation that's at the nexus of a complete regeneration, if you will. So you're really creating a curriculum for Gen Nexus, which is very powerful.
You two are going to be adult Nexus on stage, is what I'm predicting.
So,
I think we're
to wrap.
How about like your favorite takeaway of today?
Relentlessly human. You've given so many pointers on what are the qualities of humans going to be, and how are we going to look for and define the human in life, in education, in being. And I really love that. The discernment, the judgment, the not knowing is the new knowing, the curiosity. It all comes together in being relentlessly human. I love that phrase.
Well, thank you. And the last thing I would just say is I'm incredibly optimistic. I'm incredibly optimistic about what lies ahead. I think our children will have the opportunity to travel to space. I think we'll cure a whole bunch of diseases in our lifetime.
Right. Your daughter is one of them.
Absolutely.
I love the in the future, the point of view is even going to be more important. I think that was my favorite from someone whose tagline, if you remember, was care, point of view, and win. That was literally that was our tagline at Initiative, because I thought those were the most important things. And point of view is, so I love I love that you did that. I think it's time to thank our listeners for being part of this today, and say that if you learned anything about leadership and I'll say humanity from today's conversation with Liz, and there's no way that you didn't this is definitely something that will make you think. Please go ahead and share it. We'd love more people to be able to experience the conversation and learning from Liz that we did today. Jack and I's mission is to prove that for humanity, and also we started it from a business standpoint. I think this made it even bigger, that it's not about better managing the machine, it's about unleashing the human potential. And this has been Lead Human.
Boom. Thank you.
That was great.
That was
wow,
great.
Liz, I just want to keep talking, but.